Dr. Teddy here with BSN, and today we are going to do a little something special. This is called Ask BSN Athletes Anything. And what I'm going to be doing is answering your questions from the internet, and hopefully you'll learn a thing or two. So let's get right into it. Question number one, what do you think are the best ways to prevent shoulder injury? Let me start by saying I'm probably not the best person to answer this because I've had multiple shoulder dislocations myself. I've dislocated my shoulder skiing, but I've also had surgeries and I know a little bit about how to rehab the shoulder. So as long as you don't get hurt playing sports or doing anything else outside, living your life, the best way to prevent a shoulder injury in the gym is to optimize your range of motion and to improve your strength and stability of the shoulder. Now, I know that's sort of a generic answer, so let's go into a little more detail about how we can approach that. To optimize our range of motion, we're gonna wanna do in-range liftoffs, foam roller wall slides where you put a roller on the wall and really stretch your arms overhead. Something like a down dog in yoga is also a great movement for this. So there are a lot of different ways that you can start to reach overhead and improve your overhead mobility. That's extremely important, especially if you're lifting overhead. Now, in terms of strength and stability of your rotator cuff and your shoulder and the surrounding muscles, your parascapular muscles, those are the muscles that attach to your scapula, your shoulder blade, and help it to move and rotate up. Remember, we have 17 muscles that attach to our scapula, so we really have to strengthen and stabilize that whole area. In order to do that, we want to focus first and foremost on single arm exercises. So you should always have some dumbbell benching, some dumbbell rows in your programming. A dumbbell or kettlebell overhead movement is also a great option. And then it never hurts to do direct cuff work. One of the most popular exercises for direct cuff work is just the regular old external rotation, right? Another one that's really popular is a face pull. So there are a lot of different ways that we can improve the strength and stability of our cuff and our overhead motion without it turning into a 30-minute prehab session before every training session. That is question number one. What are the best ways to prevent shoulder injury? Short answer, optimize your overhead motion and improve the strength and stability of your shoulder. Question number two, I want to avoid quad tears. How do I get my glutes firing more when I squat? Now, this question kind of has an assumption built into it, and the assumption is that you're gonna tear your quad because your glutes aren't firing. And as a physical therapist, I have a little problem with that assumption. I'm thinking that the most common way that somebody tears their quad is if there's too much, too fast, and too soon on the quad, right? So some sort of overload to the quadricep muscle. It might not necessarily be your glutes firing. Now, in order to peel this back one more layer, to prevent quadriceps tearing, we want to make sure that we are training our quads through their full range of motion regularly enough so that the muscle is long and supple. If you're somebody who is just doing like mini range of motion squats above parallel and leg extensions where your hips are flexed, right, and you're kicking out, and you're never really doing rear foot elevated split squats or the couch stretch where you put your leg behind you, then your quads haven't seen full range of motion and they don't know what it looks like. So when you start to expose them to that, when you drop deep into that squat, you might be in trouble. So first part of this, how to avoid tears in our quad, we gotta squat, we gotta stretch, we gotta move through full ranges of motion. Now that doesn't mean you have to take your maximal sets through full range of motion. I'm cool with you doing a shorter range of motion, a box squat for those sets, but I still want you to do some lunges and some other movements that really stretch and move you out. Now the second part of this question, the assumption that was layered on top of it about the connection between glute activity and our quadriceps, the easiest way to explain that is that the change or the position that our body is in when we're performing an exercise, when we're doing our squats, is going to dictate our muscle activation, as well as our anatomy. So if you're somebody who, your anatomy, your setup, let's say you have short tibias and short femurs and a long torso and you just tend to be more quad dominant, if you have the hip sockets to do this and you can sit back into your squat a little bit more and push those knees out, you're gonna increase your glute recruitment. Now, the other interesting thing here is that we've seen through research that the glutes are recruited the best in the squat when you go deep, when you go below parallel. So that brings us back to our first point. You need to squat deep regularly to expose your muscles to this range of motion so that they're not like, whoa, what is that? I'm gonna tear because I'm not used to it, right? Because muscle tearing happens because of some sort of contractile unit insufficiency. That's the same reason that tendons tear too. Now, number 3 here, I'm doing a lot of chin-ups in quarantine. Question number 3. I'm doing a lot of chin-ups in quarantine, aren't we all? Any tips to make sure I don't injure or tear my biceps? Now, we just talked about this in question 2 a little bit. Tearing of muscle or tendon, the contractile unit, happens because we have an insufficiency, because it's not strong enough. It wasn't able to withstand the load, try to say that 3 times fast, that we gave it, right? And so in order to make sure that our muscle can withstand the load, we need to be organized. We need to plan things out. We can't just be like, oh, I want to do the 100 chin-up a day challenge because I'm in quarantine, right? If you were training for a marathon, you wouldn't be like, oh, let me go run a half marathon today. I haven't run in a year. So the same thing goes for strength training. If you're doing 3 sets of 10 once a week for chin-ups, don't start doing 100 chin-ups a day. Even if you can do it for a day or 2, something might happen. You might get injured, which is why you're asking me that question. So be smart, use your head, use your knowledge of training, because I know you know about how to progress slowly over time, and that is the best way, because we can't prevent all injury, that is the best way to mitigate or reduce the likelihood that we get injured.